just feel really sick now.
The night before, there was the worst standoff yet between Cameron and his father, Don. What happened?
He started hitting himself, bashing himself on the head and punching himself on the chin, with a big bruise on his chin, and starting a nosebleed as well. It did lead to me doing something I've never done and never believed in, which is raising my hand to him, which makes me now feel today somewhat of a failure because I've done that, crossed that line.
But it seems to me that you're reaching a breaking point.
It's a terrible thing to end up doing it, you know, that's a shame that I'll have to sort of get over somehow.
It does, it makes you feel awful. We've never ever hit Cameron. Just totally don't believe in it.
I mean, Don, have you ever thought of residential care? Have you ever thought we really cannot care?
I know it's a possibility, but I find it almost impossible, you know, to contemplate that sort of thing because I do love him so much. Although I have to accept it might happen. But that would make me a total failure in my eyes if I can't find a way round it.
No, it wouldn't. You don't know what his behaviour is going to become.
No, I mean it's a problem because as I get older and weaker and shorter, in perhaps 10 years' time, when he's 27 or 28 and I'm 65, it might be the balance of powers altered too much.
Hello.
You okay?
No.
Right.
Shit.
Cameron,
Bastard.
do you want to tell us anything or do you want to go upstairs again?
When can I tell you that?
Tell us now if you want.
Fuck's sake.
Go upstairs then.
Sorry. Fucking. Well,
get upstairs.
I want to talk to you about it. No, or can I do it later?
I'm not listening to that
I want
nonsense.
to talk to you about it. I want to talk to you about it.
Well, talk then.
I won't tell you.
Go upstairs.
I'm never I'm not going to tell you. I'm never going to.
It's mad, isn't it? Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, it's just hysteria.
Well, it's not surprising.
Oh dear.
I really do sympathise with Don. I know the guilt he must be feeling about losing control. I've been there myself. That awful thing of being so tired that you just lose all reason. And I remember one particular night with Domenica when I'd done 5 nights in a row and this was night 6. She just couldn't sleep. And she was just raging and raging and raging. And I remember picking her up and actually saying to myself, you know, I cannot take this anymore. And I shook her, and I shook her, and I shook her. And something snapped in my head, and I realised what I was doing. And I then put her back into bed with me. It was that moment when I could see how easy it would be to lose control, and it was just because I was beyond exhausted. I was in a place I'd never been before. And there is a history of parents of disabled children who are pushed to the absolute limit of their emotional endurance.
A mother has been jailed today for murdering her disabled daughter. Joanne Hill drowned 4-year-old Naomi in a bath at their home in North Wales, but denied murder on the grounds of diminished responsibility.
Chief Inspector Simon Price was a senior investigating officer on the case. We're not allowed to hear Joanne Hill's voice, but these are her exact words from the police interview.
And have you put anything in the bath? Bubbles. You put bubble bath in? So there are lots of bubbles?
Yeah, quite a few.
And what happens then?
And then I pushed her in.
You pushed her into the bath?
Yeah.
So is she lying on her back? Or is she lying on her...
On her front.
She's lying on her front, yeah. And how did you push her into the bath?
By her neck.
But how much force are you using to hold her under the water? Is it a struggle?
It's seemed quite easy.
It was just absolute silence in the court when that was played.
It's one of the saddest things I've ever heard. Just harrowing and dreadful and desolate. Desolate. I find it difficult to believe a mother could kill her child in cold blood. I can only surmise it was the matter-of-fact way that Joanne Hill told her story that tipped the balance and convinced the jury to convict her of murder.
You can never second-guess a jury. You never know which way a verdict is going to go, and therefore, because it's a trial about diminished responsibility or murder, it was a very, very emotional time in the courtroom when that verdict was announced.
Did she talk to any of her work colleagues about Naomi and her disability, do you know?
She would acknowledge it to a small number of people, but then would almost swear them to secrecy about it.
So it's almost as if she was ashamed in some way.
She wasn't comfortable with it, and she'd never properly accepted that.
It took me a long time to accept my own daughter. She has Down syndrome. And I just found myself peering into every other pram I saw and making it impossible for people to look into mine. And that was because I hadn't accepted her yet. And also, and this is a terrible thing to have to admit now, it was a sense of shame. She can't have told many people because she was so ashamed of her child's disability. You know, if you don't tell your friends or people you work with that you have a disabled child, everything goes in on you. And you're very isolated. Something in her head must have known that she wasn't going to cope for much longer. And to get to that state where you murder your own daughter is unimaginable. And yet in some of the families that we've been to see, we've seen how easy it is in a way, how frighteningly easy it is to get to that state. I can't meet Joanne Hill to understand why she murdered her child, but I'm on my way to meet someone who has come close to it. 3 years ago, 30-year-old Julie Everett was in a stable relationship with 2 children, eagerly awaiting the arrival of her 3rd child. 2.5 years later, and she is now a single mother to 3 children, one of whom is severely disabled.
Originally, we thought, OK, Rose is blind, and that was a shock in itself. And I can remember sat there crying my eyes out. But looking back now, I wish she was only blind. An MRI scan has shown that her brain isn't growing properly. She's got severe epilepsy. Her whole body's floppy, and she can't grasp anything either.
Julie fought for 18 months to see a specialist. In the end, she abandoned Rose at the local hospital, refusing to collect her until she was referred. A symptom of Rose's still undiagnosed condition is her relentless crying, something that can go on for days.
Her arms and her legs, they thrash around, and she breaks out into a sweat, and her hair's literally dripping. And I start to lose patience with Rose. I get really angry, I'm shouting, I swear. I have to put her down, I have to walk off, and at night times if she's screaming, I've left her, I've gone in my own bed, I've put the pillow over my head. It's a noise that you just want to stop. As the hours turn into days, your mind does funny things to you.
1 year ago, when Julie was living in Lincolnshire, things came to a head.
Last year was probably my worst place I was at. I got to a point I was so desperate, and I'd run out of ideas. I'd called social services, I'd called them 4 times. And I went to the GP and I asked for counselling, and I was so depressed looking back. But I just wanted to disappear off the face of the earth, I really did. I actually left my 2 older children with a neighbour, and Rose was with her dad. And I got in the car and I spent the entire day driving, crying, driving, crying. I called the police at one point, and I called them because I got lost. And I wanted to scream out loud, no, I don't want to be here. I want to take my own life. I don't want to go home. And I remember thinking, I just want to be out of this pain. But I couldn't bear leaving the big 2 girls. My head was playing around with so much. I was thinking, I actually have to kill all 3 of my children because I couldn't bear leaving them behind. The older 2 are so aware and they know and they're going to miss me. I'm glad that I came home that day. I look back and I regret it because the children were confused. But I remember feeling really angry because I couldn't even choose to take my own life. But I do know, hand on heart, if it was just me and Rose, that we really wouldn't be here.
So you can really understand how there are mothers who get to that point where they really can't cope. Like the Joanne Hill case.
I can absolutely understand. That so easily could have been me. While she sat in her pushchair, bless her, and she's all content, it is really lonely because there isn't a laughter. We can't play together. I suppose part of the bonding is about, a two-way thing. And for Rose, bless her, she can't give me anything back. So as a mum, sometimes I'm walking up and down with her and I just feel like I'm pushing an empty pushchair. And it's hard. I want to hear her voice. I want to play with her. I want to have her out in the sand, and I want to see her tantrums in the supermarket. I don't know Rose. I question everything. I question how life's going to be when she gets bigger. How am I going to carry her? I hate the thought of, her being 8, 10, 15 in nappies. I just can't get my head round it. And as the days go on and as it gets tougher and tougher, all them feelings from last year, all them, not wanting to be here, what kind of life has Rose got? What kind of life